All right, so here's the first question that I ask. Are you ready? Are you ready? So what does that mean? Are you ready? So most people, right, depending on where you've been, where you are after weight loss surgery, right, there's a couple different things to consider. So in this question, I'm actually talking about the inner work. I'm not actually talking like, are your stitches healed? Although that is valid, right? Because that's what people want to know. Like, oh, can I have sex now? Or is it ready? How soon? So I will answer that question, but this is mostly about the dating part, because we're going to get to the steps. So I handed out a little worksheet, because this is an assessment. And whenever I do talks like this, I get you in action. I'm not just going to talk at you. I want you to gain something that you can take out of this room to use in your life. So go to the part where it says, am I ready to date? Because this is a double-sided sheet. Am I ready to date? Okay? So we've got to do the inner work, because likely before surgery, if you are single, or if you are single now after surgery, you are looking for, we're going to talk about that too, you're looking for either a relationship or you're looking to date, but there's some inner work to be done. Because if you start before you're ready, quite a few things can happen, right? A tumultuous time happens after surgery. So weight loss is awesome, but we've got the self-esteem stuff. Sometimes there's people who are seeking validation outside themselves, or maybe attention, or there could be body image issues, like, am I good enough yet? These kinds of questions. And then we want to make sure that we're looking out for addiction transfer, because I've had people that come into the office that they're watching porn, or they are now going out and seeking stimulus in the form of sexual relationships because they're no longer able to eat, right? So this is a transfer addiction. So I don't talk about this too much, but I just want to say, put it out there. Be aware of it, right? And if you know somebody else who's had weight loss surgery and you see that they're kind of going down that pattern, be aware of it, okay? So dating, what to expect? Well, first we got to figure out what it is that you want. So here's the thing about human beings. Most often we know what we don't want. Well, I don't want anybody who's going to cheat on me. I don't want a one-night stand. I don't want to meet somebody who's going to ghost on me, right? So what is it that you do want? And I've given some options here. Friends with benefits, right? FWB. You've been swiping, you know what I'm talking about, right? Anybody know what GCF is? Oh, I'm going to really, scare y'all today. Great, consistent fuck. Great, consistent fuck.
Great. Or good.
Good. Great, consistent fuck. Y'all are like, oh my God. There's more. Oh, there's more. That's why I told y'all. You're going to blush. A solid relationship. To eventually get married. What is it that you want? Do you want casual and dating encounters or just sex? Right? Now I have to remember what DTF is. So when you're on the dating apps, and down to fuck. Are you down to fuck? Are you down to fuck? I was with one of my clients in my office, and we were swiping in my office because she was looking through Tinder. And she was like, FWB, FWB. I was like, friends with benefits. You swipe on that the other direction. Right? So do you want just sex or do you want a relationship? You've got to know. You've got to know because you're at different phases. Oh, one night stand. One night stand. Acronyms, especially if you're swiping. Right? So what I say as a recommendation is look into deeper into what you want and then why you want it. Right? If you know yourself, if you get to know yourself, if you want a one-night stand, and it's not because you're seeking the stimulus, and this is something you're repeating over and over, why is it that you want that? Right? If you are in the conscious part of you and you know what you want, then you are in control. But if you're doing something over and over and over and you don't know why you're doing it, then you're out of control. Right? And that's when you might need to talk to somebody because then it's getting serious. Right? So when you're dating, there's the role of self-esteem and self-worth. Because after weight loss surgery, there is a lot of that hanging skin and all of these, body image issues that come up. So you ask, will they like me? Right? So I usually say, do you like you? Because if you don't like you, and now you're seeking somebody else to like you, then we got a problem. Because if you're not liking you, and you're like me, it's like selling a product that you actually don't believe in. Are you with me? It's kind of like, hey, would you kind of like this? It's kind of used. Like, would you like this? No. Right? So, but you have to love you. Right? You're not selling you. I hope you're not. But, what you're doing is you've got to love you in order to know what's awesome about you. Right? Because you're going to enter into a relationship with this person. So this is what's important. Right? So here are the questions that I get. Am I good enough? Am I good enough? So this is where ghosting, rejection, one night stand, right, down the fuck, good consistent fuck, right, all these things come in. Because a lot of individuals that I've worked with, what happens is they go and they enter into a sexual relationship too soon, and they really want a relationship. They really want a relationship. They don't know that person. They don't know what's going on, and then boom, they get ghosted. Because that's not what the other person wanted.
What is ghosting?
Ghosted means when you guys get together, you go on a date, and then they totally disappear. They don't call, they don't write, they don't send a post-it, there's no, they're done. They're done. And sometimes after, the one night, people are not necessarily engaging in a one-night stand. They don't think it's a one-night stand. But what I see, especially more so with women than men, but they'll say, oh, this is going to be great. And then they engage in that sexual relationship too early, and the guy's like, I'm out. Peace. And so that could be a form of ghosting because she may be invested in, hey, are we going to go out again? And he's like, he was never planning on that. But if that's never discussed, then sometimes a woman can feel invalidated or crushed or even bruised or what's wrong with me or what happened. So that's why I say, and this is not a class on celibacy, but you've got to know yourself and your body and respect your body enough to enter into a sexual relationship responsibly, right? You've got to know what you're entering into. So the other thing, hanging skin and body image issues when dating, some people say, oh, do I tell somebody if I've had weight loss surgery? And I've got another slide where I talk about that too. But here, the hanging skin, the body image issues, this is back to you got to be confident with you, right? So if you know that this is a temporary situation, then if you're going to meet somebody who's forever, are they going to love you, or are they hanging around, just to wait until your body gets good? So that's how you've got to look for a partner who's looking for all of you, not just the outsider. Because if somebody says, hey, I'm going to, I'll call you when you have your skin surgery. No way. But if you don't have enough self-confidence, if your self-esteem is low, I've known people who are like, okay, and they kind of feed into that because they don't love themselves enough to be able to partner with someone who's equal, right? They're looking maybe for somebody to validate them. So self-deprecating thoughts. I'm not good enough, or the negative self-talk. Look at me, I'm so disgusting, right? You know what happens inside your head. I know what happens inside your head because I have a lot of people that I'm inside their heads. So it's the negative self-talk that you're not good enough that keeps you away from actually living your life, right? So you've got to introduce some positive self-talk in terms of, and that's why I gave you this worksheet. It's looking at what do I need to do to get ready. So maybe part of that is instituting positive self-talk and actually knowing what your good qualities are and knowing what it is that you have to offer, right? Because a lot of people only focus on the outside. Well, I look like this or this. That's only part of it. And yes, attraction is a big part, especially when you go into the online dating world. There's that attractor factor. Yet, they are also looking to be attracted to somebody on the inside as well. And yes, on dating apps, it's primarily on the outside. Sometimes you have to get to know someone. That's the other reason why jumping into relationships too fast or jumping into sex too fast is not a good thing either. So desperation and the focus is not making yourself too available. So the desperation, it's like, again, I'm going to use that salesman thing. Like if somebody is desperate, it's like blood in the water. Like you can sniff it. Right? So that other person, if you're like, I want a relationship, when you settle, don't settle, first of all. But if you start to settle, they will sense that, and then you're going to create a shark prey type situation versus looking for an equal. Don't make yourself prey. Don't do that to yourself. This is why I created this, because we got to know what it is that you want. Who is it that you're seeking? Right? You want to seek someone who, let's say, is confident, who believes in themselves, but you've also got to be confident and believe in yourself. Right? So this is why you've got to figure out what it is, what are your attributes that you're bringing to a relationship that you're also seeking. So not making yourself too available because, again, desperation, making, hey, yeah, I'm available from now until December, pick me up whenever. So it's not attractive because it looks like you're just waiting for somebody else to come and get you or save you. You've got to be your own savior. You've got to be that person that works on you, knows you, believes in you, right? Because if you're seeking validation outside yourself, then I would suggest that you seek a therapist wherever you live so that you can work on some of those deeper issues because those go way back to childhood. Okay, setting healthy boundaries. So there's this great book that I love, and I know there's guys in here, but this is mostly for women. It's called Why Men Love Bitches. Why Men Love Bitches. What it says in that book, I've been recommending this to my clients, not even bariatric, just everybody, since I started working as a therapist. Why? Because if you don't set healthy boundaries, and some people think bitches set healthy boundaries, if you don't set healthy boundaries, you will get mowed over. So one of the first things she says in this book is do not invite a man over to your house like on the second date. Why? Because you're getting into a one-night stand situation. You're putting yourself in a situation where you're in your house and the bedroom's like right there. Why don't we just go sit on the bed? Like, we're just going to watch a movie, right? You know what happens. You guys know the end of that story. So don't put yourself in situations where, again, you go back to being the prey. Or you're too desperate. Well, I want to show him I'm going to make a good wife. No, girl, there's plenty of time for that. Right now, let him take you out. Okay? So you've got to set healthy boundaries in terms of what you believe about yourself, and also when you're available. If you have a life, I've known people that say, oh, I'm going to cancel. Oh, you know what, you want to go out with me Saturday? I'm going to go out with my girls. But you know what, I'll cancel and I'll go out with you instead. Right? That goes back to that desperate energy. So getting confident with who you are and your body no matter what. So this is where also the hanging skin part comes in, because I've heard people say, but I've got this and I've got that. Again, you've got to own who you are 100%. And this is also where you've got to have this dialogue, this internal dialogue. Are you ready for sex? Are you ready to have a conversation with someone, if you take off your clothes and you do have hanging skin? And if you're not ready to have that conversation, are you ready to have sex? Right? So these are all very deep questions to ask. So online dating, putting yourself out there, creating a profile, sharing who you are and what you want. How many people in here are online dating? Okay. No, it's fine. So, but you want to create a profile that shares who you are and what you're looking for, honestly. But I also say, you've got to watch out for the pictures, because if you guys are online dating, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Show me your tits. Like, there's tons of stuff on there like that. Or you get dick pics. You guys know that, right? Anybody here sending dick pics? All right, please don't. So avoid low-cut pictures of, I'm serious, because it literally, it's almost like the brain goes, oh, she is easy, right? We're going to go back to GCF, which is? Right. Because that's what they're looking for, or friends with benefits. Okay, so if you're on Tinder, you swipe left if you don't like them, and you swipe left if you don't like them, swipe right if you like them, right? So you've got to be looking for these acronyms that I've been sharing with you. Why? Because that's what they're looking for, and there are people who will tell you what they're looking for, right? Now, ghosting, which I shared a little while ago, is when you get together, or they're like, hey, you're cute, or hey, I want to talk to you, or you start chatting, and then all of a sudden, silence, radio silence. Okay? Absolutely not interested. Another great book I love is He's Just Not That Into You. Now, I think that book is good for either sex, although it pertains to women usually, right? But it really shows you that if somebody is going to make the time, if somebody really likes you, they're going to make the time, right? So the progression of the connection, chatting and texting. So there's like these rules. If you guys don't know, there's like these rules. Like you chat and you text. You give somebody your phone number. And then you talk on the phone. And then you meet in person. Right? So the first meeting, what are they looking for? We usually know ahead of time. But I had a client who came in. She said, I met this guy. I was already sitting at the table. And I had my pictures online. And when I left, he called me the next day and he goes, wow, I didn't realize you had such a big ass. I'm not attracted to women with big asses. Right. But she was like, you know what? Next. Because she had that core of confidence that I'm not going to attract somebody, right? I don't want to be with somebody who doesn't want to be with me. Right? So it's about loving your attributes, all of them, right? So what happens in the first meeting? You'll meet for coffee or drinks. Most people these days are not meeting on a first meeting for dinner. I have to tell you, if you guys are new to this dating thing. The nerves. So there's a nerve. Sometimes it's like, is he here yet or is she here yet? And you're like, what are they wearing? And you're texting and it's nervous. What to say, what not to say, right? And I'm not actually going to talk about weight loss surgery on this point, what to say, what not to say. You might not want to tell them, right, about your ex-husband, how he's trying to sue for alimony, and I mean, right? You kind of keep that later. You might not want to talk about STDs at that point, right? We're not there yet. But what you do want to talk about is kind of like common interests. You know, the first thing that people usually talk about is what do you do? What do you like? Who are you know? Who are you as a person? What is it that you like to do? Common interests types of things, which I know we all know. But it's really the whole dating process is, am I going to like you or are you going to like me? Which for a bariatric patient is really scary. And I can completely identify with this because it's almost like somebody else is validating whether you're good enough, which goes back to the whole good enough question. And that's why we've got to have this strong inner core of, I'm already good enough. I'm already good enough. I'm already complete. I don't need somebody to complete me. I just want somebody to share my life with. Do you see how that's completely different? That's completely different. So when you look, right, for what it is that you want, that's something that you got to focus on. So do you feel obligated to share about your weight loss surgery? And this may come up. And most recently, I've had a couple clients that have asked me this. Do I share it? Do I not share it? It's totally up to you if you want to share it. If you're to a point where you're about to have sex and you think that they might not know that there's some hanging skin and you want to talk to them about it, at that point, you're usually in a committed relationship where that's something that you can have that conversation and they're going to be completely understanding and like you and love you anyway. Now, if you're having sex way before that and somebody ghosts on you, then it was never really about you to begin with. It was just about the sex. Are you guys with me? Okay. So the follow-up. So this is where the ghosting kind of part comes in. I'm so busy, I'm sorry, I'd really like to meet up with you again, but work is just so rough. That's the easy letdown, right? That's the easy letdown, and that's when you go, bye, right? Have y'all ever seen that meme? Ain't nobody got time for that. like really, because if you are hanging on whether this person is going to reply to you, then you're back in desperation. Then you're back in needing external validation. And you're not strong in who they are. No matter how cute they are, no matter how awesome they are, no matter how you thought that they were going to be a good fit, you've got to kind of trust that the right person, you will find them along the way and go, okay, Maybe God just didn't want me to have, maybe that was just not the right one for whatever reason. So you kind of have to act with a core of trust and you knowing who you are, right? So the ghosting, we've kind of talked about that. They just disappear. You don't know why. They never write back. Maybe you email them. Maybe you write them. And maybe they blocked you. That's usually a sign. But it's usually like, it's sad because you're like, what did I do? What's wrong with me? And I'm going to talk about that in a second. What did I do? What's wrong with me? And I say, I put another word there. And I thought, well, let me be nice. Let that shizzle go. So, what do you want? So you've got to know what is it that you want. Clarity. What do you want in a relationship? Do you see where the dance party part comes in? So everybody, when I was making this PowerPoint, I was like, what do you want? I was like, I have to put these something. So critical steps to finding the one. But I'm gonna kind of, let me see if I'm all back up here. So what did I do? What's wrong with me? I want to go back there for a second. So there's absolutely nothing wrong with you. And there's absolutely nothing that you could have done wrong. But I think that for a lot of individuals, you internalize like, oh, this is about me, this is about me, this is about me. No. Because how many times have you engaged with somebody else and you're like, no. Like, their nose was too long, or, they had dirty fingernails, or, something. They smelled. You couldn't keep up a conversation. They were boring. You had nothing to talk about, right? You can think of 100 reasons why you weren't attracted to them, and maybe it had nothing to do with their body. They just weren't an attractive person for whatever reason. Right? But why is it when the shoe's on the other foot, you internalize? But it's so easy when you dislike someone to go, yeah, I don't want to see them again. Right? So I want you guys to shift your perspective around that when you're dating so that you're not seeing this as a mortal flaw. There is absolutely nothing wrong with you. You guys just weren't a good fit. And that person decided you weren't a good fit. So you move on. So what is it that you want? So clarity. So I talk about this. This is the worksheet, the dating piece. So what I call is the 80-20 rule minus deal breakers. What is the 80-20 rule? So you've got to have ideal characteristics. What does the ideal mate look like? Like maybe you put, they have a great sense of humor, they have a job, they have a car, they're not living with their mama, right? Maybe, whatever. I mean, I'm just saying, like,
They're not living with their child.
Or they're not living with their child. There you go.
Not living with their wife.
Or their wife, or their ex-wife, right? Or I got recently separated, and we're kind of together, but we're not really. But I really want to go out with you because you're really hot, right? So, yeah, baby mama. So the other one I've got to say, so focus on 80-20 miles deal breakers. What are deal breakers? Like they're in jail, or they sell drugs, or, they have a child crimes charge on their record from 12 years ago that they can't seem to get wiped. Oh, believe me,
They're a sexual predator.
Or they're a child predator, right? So there are certain things that we would call deal breakers. I know we're laughing about them, but I'm so serious right now because people have skeletons in their closet and you don't know. You really don't know. So what I say is focus on the 80-20. When you have a whole picture, when you write all of these things down, what is 80-20? No. I'll tell you. So 80-20 is when you write down all of the characteristics of a person that you want. We're not focusing on what you don't want. That's the deal breakers, right? What you want is 100%. But we're never going to find 100% match. But there are things that we can deal with that the other person does that's not on our list, right? Like, he leaves his shoes and his underwear on the floor, or, he doesn't stick them in the laundry, or the toilet seat is up, or, whatever. And I'm talking from a woman's point of view, so, right? Guys, help me out if there's something from a guy's point of view that you don't want in a woman.
The toilet seat's down, I go.
Oh, the toilet seat's down, all right. find 100% of everything you write down. But the stuff that they don't meet the criteria for, it's not a deal breaker. It's not a deal breaker. And between 80-20 and I would even say 70-30, you're going to meet somebody who's a pretty good match on what you're searching for. Like, wow, this person's like everything that I've been searching for. But they're not this, this, and this. Are they deal breakers? No, they're not deal breakers. They're just, I can deal with them. Those are things I can live with. Then you've got a pretty good match. But sometimes there are people who look for like perfection. Well, he's not this, she's not this, and they start checking off. It's like nobody's 100% perfect. We're not 100% perfect. But when you find a good match that fits a good portion of that, that's where the 80-20 comes in. That the 20% are things that you can live with. Right? So the critical steps to finding the one are that you kind of have a good idea of what it is that you want. And so I didn't put it on this paper because I didn't want to give you too many sheets of paper, but maybe a list of all the things you don't want. And then you look at that and you flip it. Okay, so what do I want, right, in a partner? Someone who's supportive, someone who's loving, someone who loves you for who you are on the inside, someone who you can go and hang out with, someone that you can have similar activities with, whether it's for a bike ride or for a walk or
Text message all day long.
text message all day long. You're another case. A text message relationship. So how to build a solid relationship. So relationship basics. Reading nonverbal cues. Right? So if you're on a date with someone, you're sitting across the table, and they're like, yeah, yeah, I've heard that before. And they're looking somewhere else. Are they into you? No. Right? You've got to notice the nonverbal cues. Are they reaching across the table to hold your hand? Do they have an affectionate personality, or are they not affectionate? Is that something you want? Right? A great book that I recommend, The 5 Love Languages. Everybody knows that one, right? Knowing what your love language is, knowing what you're giving, knowing what you want to receive. Interpersonal communication. And I talk about passive aggressiveness down below, but people sometimes can be super passive aggressive. You didn't call me the other day. Well, you didn't call me either. Well, I was at work. Well, how was I supposed to know that? Like, is that a very healthy communication? No. So, yeah, sometimes we want to give people the benefit of the doubt, but we also need to have healthy communication. Hey, I was thinking about you. I hadn't heard from you in a couple days. Everything okay? So there's a lot of working on that interpersonal communication. So assertiveness is you getting your needs met while also considering the needs of others. Aggressiveness is only you getting your needs met, not thinking about the needs of others. Passive aggressiveness is where you want to get your needs met, but you don't necessarily want them to know you're getting your needs met, and you're kind of going about it the wrong way. And everybody knows what passive aggressive is, right? Sarcasm, passive aggressive. Okay, so acknowledging what your feelings are. If you really like someone and they don't seem to be reciprocating, cut them loose. Save yourself the heartache. Because how many times I can tell you that I've had somebody say, well, I really like this guy, but he only calls me on the third Tuesday of every month, and I don't know, maybe he's dating somebody else, I'm not sure. So this is back to where the self-love comes in, where you've got to know yourself enough, and if you get too deep into that kind of relationship, what can happen is then you succumb to the conditions of the relationship instead of really acknowledging what is. What is. So sex complicates things. This goes back to having sex too early, so women, more so than men, get emotional involvement in sexual relationships. And so having sex too early can get you very emotionally involved when the other person may not be emotionally involved or as involved as you. So this is where, again, this is not a chastity talk, but you've got to know when you're comfortable to enter into a sexual relationship, because your feelings for this person will increase, because when intimacy is there, the emotions are increased. They're maximized, because it's a beautiful thing. It's hot. Right? And so what happens in a sexual relationship is that should increase the connection. right? But if that other person is not into you in the first place, do you think it's going to increase the connection? No. It's going to go back to what? Good, consistent fuck. Or friends with benefits.
Or ghosting.
Or ghosting. Right? So this is where you really got to know who it is that you're entering into a sexual relationship with. And everybody's adults. You guys know this. But I've seen so many people that are like, wow, I really thought he liked me. I really thought he liked me. And they're genuinely hurt. And then they go back to, oh my gosh, what's wrong with me? Was it the skin? Was it this? Was it that? If they didn't actually know you on the inside, then maybe it could have been the physical exterior, because they didn't get to know you on the inside, because they weren't interested in the inside. They were only interested in the outside and the sex. So the other thing with dating and sex complications, there's mental health issues in dating. So some people can actually get depressed because over time what happens? If you're kind of getting into this cycle of what's wrong with me, I'm not good enough, nobody likes me, nobody's swiping on me, what happens inside here? The pervasive negative self-talk kind of cycles downward. So you have to learn how to talk to yourself and to know what it is. Like, I'm a great catch. Know who you are, what you're bringing to the table. Not that you're over-giving or oversharing, but just that you know what it is that you bring into a relationship. And if somebody's not interested in that, next, moving on, because there will be somebody who is. So, sexual positions and hanging skin. What is that? Right? Everybody's like, oh my gosh, she's about to talk about some stuff. Put all your business out there. So, obviously, when there is excessive hanging skin and you have not had plastics, this is where it can actually get in the way, especially if you have that lower part that's hanging over. Right? So this is a part that can actually interfere with sexual activity. So before sex, obviously, what do people do? Lift it up. This seems like an easy question, right? An easy answer. But it can also be where there's things like that needs, like the skin shaping gel, right? Comes into play. KY, right? We know about that. And also using powder and things like that. This is something that can affect people. But then again, going back to, are you comfortable enough to have sex with, let's say, the hanging skin, right? So this is also about knowing your partner so that you can comfortably have sex. So I also, when I was talking about complications, the movie representation of rejection, right? What do people do? They sometimes go to self-sabotage because they go, what's wrong with me? And then they go and eat. Right? So it's important that if you are struggling with it, that you're not internalizing it to the point. I put Ben and Jerry's in self-sabotage because I was thinking about Bridget Jones' Diary, where she's like singing Celine Dion all by myself, right? She's sitting there eating the ice cream and crying. So the other thing I wanted to share is the media representation of rejection, because that gets into our brains. And so we've got to shift that rejection away from the self-sabotage and going, oh no, I'm not going to let that happen to me. I'm going to take back control over myself and my brain, and I know I'm good enough. And that's when you might want to pull out the journal and look at who you are, what you want, and revalidate where you're going, like what steps you're taking, and not go back to, I'm not that whole, I'm not good enough. And the other part of mental health issues in dating is you don't know who else has mental health issues. So that's the other thing. Y'all are worried about ghosting, right? And you're worried about getting rejected, but that person could have issues. That person could have their own stuff that's going on. Just because they might look a certain way on the outside doesn't mean that you have any idea what's going on in here. Are you guys with me? So a lot of times, individuals put things on themselves and they make themselves at fault. Okay, byproducts of sex. This is important. right? Knowing where you stand about children, depending on age and if you've had a hysterectomy or not. Do you want kids? Using birth control, right? So for those women at childbearing age, for the first 18 months after surgery, you're usually required to have some form of birth control so that you are able to lose the weight, and then they ask you to take the birth control out. So STDs, sharing if you have one, at what point? Well, obviously you want to share at the point that you're going to have sex. Hopefully you've dated that person enough so that you can talk about that, and so that you're not entering a ghosting situation again, right? That they like you for you. Using protection to protect against STDs, but also having that conversation because you don't know if they have an STD. So that's the other thing. You gotta have that conversation because you may be fine, but you don't know who they've been sleeping with. And discussing about the protection, and of course the STDs. Because if they say, no, I don't like to use protection, bye. Bye. Right? Other topics. So here's the research part. So sexual satisfaction, libido increase following the weight loss resulting from weight loss surgery. Everybody knows this, right? So the other part, go ahead.
They say that you're fertile myrtle after weight loss.
You are fertile myrtle after
We
weight loss.
should remember that for young people.
Exactly. Exactly. Fertility rates increase for women with weight loss families. Some PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome, issues can be resolved, not always, but some can, right? So sexual satisfaction and libido. So we're here to talk about sex. So I didn't put this on here in terms of a bullet point, but sex toys. If you're not engaging in a sexual relationship with somebody else, that doesn't mean you can't pleasure yourself. That doesn't mean that you can't enter into masturbation. And it gets easier because I know people are like, I can't believe you said that. But you can reach it. Maybe you couldn't reach it before. I'm serious. I know y'all are laughing, but I'm serious. Maybe you can reach it now. So you can buy these products online, right? One of my girlfriends just said, oh, we're going to have a passion party. We're going to have a passion party. Right? You can have a passion party. You can find the stuff online delivered in a very secret pink box or something so nobody knows what it is. All right. This. I'm going to make y'all do this. What are the most common questions do you think about sex after weight loss surgery? How long do you have to wait? So it depends on the doctor. The doctors usually have different things, and it's usually 4 to 6 weeks. I have had clients that have waited at least 1 week.
My answer was as soon as possible.
As soon as possible. I've had clients that have waited 1 week. I've had, if somebody comes to my office and say, how long? I say, go ask your surgeon, because you got to make sure your wounds heal, right? I'm not going to talk off point. But usually, most people, it's for 3 weeks, but the surgeons usually say 4 to 6 weeks, and even surgeons vary. Okay, anybody else? What positions are best? Whatever you like. Okay, does anybody want to know the number one question I get? Are you guys ready? Can I swallow? It is not protein. It is not protein. I looked it up. I did not put it in this presentation. I looked it up, and there are 11 grams of carbs. It is low fat. No. It does have fat in it. Why? Because they're amino acids.
But is it a good man or bad man?
So here's the answer. If you want to. If you want to. It will not hurt your stomach. if you want to. Okay, so if you don't want to, maybe you could use it as an excuse. Oh, I had weight loss surgery. I'm not allowed to. You guys are like, no. You hear that? You know it's bullshit. Mom. You don't do that. Okay, we're not against it. We're not a good match. I'm a ghost on you. Yeah.
I can't choose between that and a Snicker.
Now, I didn't say you had to make a choice. Okay, so now I'm going to open it up to you guys. Because that is the number one question that I'm asked. Of course, there's the sex positions. There's the how soon, how long do I have to wait? And sometimes I get asked, because, and this is true, so men, when you lose the weight, and maybe you know, there is some extra length there as a result. I don't know how much, because Lord knows I don't measure. I'm a psychotherapist. But people will ask me that. So, so the answer is yes. So what other questions do you guys have for me?
Okay, so some of us are kind of extra. So when you go on a date, I mean, like I couldn't show up on a date in my Wonder Woman costume.
Why not?
How much do you expose on a date? I mean, for those of us like I say me, who's extra. I talk all the time. I'm silly. I'm over the top.
You be you.
Okay, well they're in trouble. They're gonna all boast.
Here's the thing, they're going to be in a relationship with you, they're going to get all of you.
That's right.
So you be all of you. Because if they don't want all of you, then they're going to ghost.
Okay.
And you got to own it. They want that Wonder Woman. And, yeah, they don't want to be with somebody fake. They don't want to be with somebody who's inauthentic. So if all of a sudden you're all buttoned up like, hi, I'm here. And then the next day you're like, shh. Like, maybe they want that, but truthfully, you got to be you. Because maybe you were all buttoned up and they were like, oh, she's too, you know, she's too stiff for me. She's not the kind to get loose. And then they ghosted because that's who they thought you were. That's not who you really were. I'm sorry?
So she won't be happy either if she tries to hold the book beside that's not her.
Totally. Because you can only hold the stuff. Oh, this is my favorite thing. Y'all know Chris Rock? For the first year of a relationship, he says, you're not meeting or dating that real person, you're dating a representative. I tell my clients that all the time. I'm like, just remember, the first 6 months to a year, you're meeting a representative. And then they become who they really are. Right? Then the mask comes up. So they show a good face. They show what they want you to see. And the more you get to know them, that's the truth. So sometimes when that mask comes off, ooh, who are you? Why have I been dating you for so long? So that's another reason why I say be cautious on entering into that sexual relationship, because oh, I love them and they're so amazing. And then before you know it, you're like, oh my gosh, this person's talking to me this way and acting this way, and you know, they're really not good for me, but how can I leave? Yes, I invested so much time. And so we go back to what? Excuses, which we're really good at, by the way. So we don't need any help with it, especially in relationships. So that's why I say never settle. Watch out for the red flags. Watch out for the situations that you're like, I don't know about this. Because that usually, I hear people all the time, man, I ignored the flags, I ignored the signs. Because I really wanted a relationship. So you got to recognize that that relationship has to be for the right reasons. Because if you're entering in a relationship because you really want a relationship, you might not be in the right relationship. Right? Right. Any other questions?
Love doesn't hurt.
Love doesn't hurt.
And if you're in a relationship and it hurts,
So what I hear is, oh, but when it's good, it's good, and when it's bad, it's really, really bad, then get out. Because that's not love. That's something totally different. Anybody else?
Can you give us a list of all the acronyms used?
Yeah, they're on Facebook. Let's see, one night stand, friends with benefits, good consistent fuck,
SA.
essay,
Seeking arrangement.
seeking arrangements.
They're married.
They're married. Right? What was that? I can hear you. MILF!
What?
Oh, yes.
Bill.
MILF. Mom, I'd like to fuck.
Yeah.
Mom.
Mom.
Yeah. MILF. Cougars. Don't know what cougars are? Older red. A cougar. What else?
FB.
That's a badge of courage.
Right?
And there's a difference between FB and friends with benefits.
Oh, friends with benefits or FB, fuck buddy.
Yeah, there's definitely a distinction between the two.
There's difference.
Yeah, there is.
Oh, Mike, you missed your big question. You want to hear that? No, he's like, okay.
Or what a unicorn-
Question I'm asked the most. Can I swallow? After weight loss surgery. That's a question that weight loss surgery patients ask after surgery.
Can she?
Can she? I don't know. Has she had surgery? Has she had surgery? Oh, look, he's fanning himself. He's out. I don't know. It's stressing me out. We're just going to do another raffle. Thank you, everyone.